What is up, gang? Today is day 16 of Press Record 30. Today we're going to be talking about what, if anything, is missing from Stoicism. It's a tricky topic to talk about because by and large, Stoicism has played a fundamental role in my life. And I think in our current day and age, Stoicism has seen a revival with people like Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss, Donald Robertson, Massimo Pagliucci. I don't know how to say that. Pagliucci. It's Italian, and with good reason. I think, especially in these technological times, we're living in a world where there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of chaos. And if we think about the origins of Stoicism, it also sort of flourished and blossomed in a stage of Roman history where sort of the various city-states were warring. There's a lot of wars, there's plagues, there's famine. Just in general, there's a lot of chaos happening. And so there's a comfort that comes in chaos from Stoicism and its ability to sort of bring us back to baseline. If we think about this today and sort of the chaotic nature and sort of anxious society we live in, one of the great parts about Stoicism, and part of the reason that I found it and fell in love with it, was the tools that it gives you to not dismiss your emotions, but to navigate your emotions in a way where they don't control or rule your life. Stoicism offers a lot of great reminders. This is in Epictetus's chief task in life is to discern which things are in your control and which things are not, and be prepared to not think about the things that are outside of control, focus only on those in your control. That's one of the foundational parts of Stoicism. Another one, sort of Marcus Aurelius' meditation, can be kind of summarized in his line, everything has changed, life is opinion. And so that wrapped all in that statement is this idea that the universe is in flux, that hyperlinks back to Heraclitus, and everything is changing, all things go. This is also the message in Ecclesiastes in the Bible. And so it does not do to cling or become attached to things of the world, because inevitably when they leave, they're going to take you with them if you're attached to them. And then we see a lot of the similar sentiments in Seneca, and those are sort of the three major heads of Stoicism, though not all of Stoicism is in those three. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus. They're definitely the three most famous today. But the point of today's video is I want to try to talk about why I personally, after falling in love with the Stoics and sort of reading Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and then writing my first book, just came to think that there was something missing from the Stoics. And this isn't to say I don't appreciate them or value the school of philosophy that is Stoicism. Like I said, I think it is mostly right. It gets almost all of the way there, in my opinion. But when we think about what it lacks, we can think about this in the context of the virtues. So the Stoics take the stance that virtue is enough. That virtue is all you need. You just act with virtue, and that is how you live a good life. And so they had the four virtues: wisdom, temperance, courage. Wisdom, temperance, courage, and justice. So those are sort of the four cardinal virtues. And then you have the theological virtues, the three: hope, faith, love. And I think there, in that addition, is we see something of what might be missing from Stoicism, and why I think it marches all the way to the door. It does a really good job of getting you to baseline, but it can never really lead you to a full and flourishing life. I think what some of the early church fathers, like St. Augustine. So St. Augustine is notorious, wasn't a Christian, and his conversion story is told in Confessions. And as the story goes, he kind of has his own trajectory where he basically tries every school of philosophy other than Christianity until eventually he sort of finds something wanting in them, and he just progresses and progresses until he converts to Christianity. And I think part of the reason that happens is because with Stoicism, like I said, it does a great job of getting you to baseline. If you get pulled down by emotions or anxieties or worries, Stoicism does a very good job at bringing you back to neutral. But it can never really offer you a full and flourishing and happy life. The best it can offer is only real wisdom it kind of gives us is live with virtue, that alone is sufficient, and live according to nature. Now, if you if you don't believe in the existence of a soul or the existence of God, I understand how Stoicism is something like the best you can do. There's a reason that Dante puts some of the Stoics with the other ancient classical thinkers in limbo. Limbo sort of represents where the best of reason can bring you, but it cannot take you to the top of paradise because it doesn't sort of offer that hope, faith, love. So thinking about this in the theological virtues, hope, faith, love, in terms of what might be missing from Stoicism, let's take love, for instance. Stoicism in general it says something like you should be indifferent to all things external to you, which would also mean indifferent to the suffering or loss of those you love. Now, we do have some lines in Marcus Aurelius's Meditations about meditating on the equanimity and the connectedness of all things, and how what's bad for the hive is bad for the bee. And so there is some sense of other people are how we treat other people is how we treat ourselves. There is some sense of that, but Marcus Aurelius, it's not even obvious that he would have considered himself a Stoic. I think he was a Stoic plus, and that some of his teachers were Stoic, but he also took from other schools, and he never calls himself a Stoic. He quotes some of the Stoics, but he never calls himself a Stoic. And so I don't think it's necessarily fair to think that everything that Marcus says comes from the school of Stoicism. Much in the same way that everything Seneca says doesn't come from the school of Stoicism. As we talked about yesterday, the person that Seneca quotes the most is Epicurus. But if we think about this, let's think about this in the context of like the parable of the Good Samaritan. There's an active command to love thy enemies, or do good to those that hurt you, that come from Christianity and from the Gospels. There's also a service component to this, of like you should care and empathize with the suffering of other people such that you should actively go out of your way to serve them. And there is something about the self-actualization that happens, the true flourishing of the spirit, that is only possible when you put yourself in this stance of service to other people. It is not a stance of complete indifference to the external world. There is some feeling of the pain of others so that you might serve them. That is necessary to our flourishing. I think in my heart of hearts, that's what I intuitively sense is missing from the study of Stoicism alone. So there's Arthur Brooks talks about this idea of start with the Stoics, but don't end there. And that's how I feel. I feel the exact same way. There's a certain element of loving other people that we don't really get from the Stoics. And on the flip side, I'm not sure, having studied sort of the similarities between Seneca and St. Paul, Ecclesiastes and Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus and some of the early church fathers, or Boethius, medieval Boethius, who sort of blend the Stoic and Christian traditions, and the best of both. I've kind of come to believe that there isn't anything that Stoicism offers that Christianity doesn't. I think the one thing that makes people drift to Stoicism is it gives them the philosophical reason side of things when they can't get themselves to have the faith side or believe in a God, or there's just too many questions. But in a lot of ways, I think Stoicism is a bridge that inevitably leads people to the front door of something like Christianity. And I wouldn't be surprised if this resurgence in Stoicism recently leads more and more people back into a faith almost through the back door. Because I think Stoicism marches you right up to the door of Christianity, where if you're being honest with yourself, you sort of have to contemplate and sit with what things might be missing from Stoicism. Um, there's a lot more to be researched and thought through on this process. I'm just at the beginning stages of trying to articulate my own thoughts on this subject, and trying to write a Substack essay about it. So if I'm a little disjointed in thought, it's because I'm attempting real time to aggregate my thoughts on this particular topic and give me something like an outline and just exploring my intuition. So I apologize for the choppiness, but I appreciate you putting up with it. Until next time, peace.